Hey everybody, welcome back to MUFC vs. Everybody. I am your host Sean. Thank you for stopping by today with a little bit of a shorter news roundup today for Man United, but some big stuff to cover. So I want to make sure I made a point to stop by today and get your thoughts, share my thoughts, and keep you guys updated on what's been going on. I know it's been a little bit of a volatile day on social media with some of the news that's come out. So do our best to get through it and share my thoughts. Like I said, don't forget to leave a like on the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're new, or get involved in the chat, and we will get going. Let's get stuck right in. So Old Trafford might not be Old Trafford anymore if Adam Crafton is to be believed. I'm not sure if I fully believe it, but let me dive right in here and then let me get your thoughts as well. So according to Adam Crafton, who writes with The Athletic and whatnot, he's put out today that in an effort to raise some funds, INEOS and Zirkzee might be open to selling the naming rights to Old Trafford and or a new stadium. I think he also added that they might be looking to increase ticket prices as well. I know ticket prices have not been increased for many years, I believe. Obviously, I don't know as much about that. I'm not from Manchester, clearly, unless I have the worst Manc accent ever. So Adam Crafton's report also states that the potential naming rights are under consideration for a new stadium, not just Old Trafford. So again, I'm more inclined to believe that we're going to be selling the naming rights to a potential new stadium. Zirkzee has already come out over a year ago in an interview when the ownership question was still up for debate, who was going to be the new owner, and has already said that he would never change the name of Old Trafford. He even went so far as to call it heresy to even think about it. He said, I would not change it. It is always Old Trafford. So I highly doubt that he would be willing to sell the naming rights to the actual stadium, Old Trafford. So before you get mad at Zirkzee and INEOS, let's all try to remember where the Glazers put us in terms of finances right now. It's because of the Glazers that this is even a thing that's being discussed. And when I read like these very kind of journalisty phrases like being discussed, under consideration, what I hear is I picture a group of people like INEOS people in a room just having a meeting talking about current issues, plans, and somebody's saying, oh, what if we do this? Oh, well, we don't like. That's probably the extent of a lot of these things, but because two people have said a sentence apiece on it, that's technically discussed, under consideration. So I wouldn't put too much stock in a lot of these things. But again, like I was saying, the Glazers have put us in a situation where we have to look at these kind of things. And even that is not as desperate as it sounds in that regard. Yes, cut back on perks and lavish spending, cut back on revamping kind of the transfer fees and the wages that we've been putting out over the last decade or so. But what this means is, again, it's more modernization. There's not many stadiums for big clubs that aren't sponsored in some way, unless you're just bankrolled by Spain, like Madrid or something. It's just the way it is these days. I mean, and I know it's been said on a couple other channels already, as far as, you know, a new Old Trafford kind of a thing. You put something like look at Camp Nou, for instance, Barcelona. It's called Spotify Camp Nou. Does anyone call it Spotify Camp Nou? No. Does anybody call Carrington the Aon Training Complex? No, because it's Carrington, because it's Camp Nou. Even let's say on the 1% chance that they did sell the naming rights to Old Trafford, and it was like what was connected today, Bank of America Old Trafford. No one's going to call it that. It's going to be Old Trafford, and that's it. And again, you have to look at the wording in these reports. So the wording is, it's possibility, it's under consideration, under discussion, like just like the increasing ticket prices. Again, these are things that people are spitballing in meetings and stuff, and possibilities, because journalists are listing these possibilities. Journalists are sneaky. They like to stir people up. I mean, if you look at the response from Manchester United Supporters Trust after the fact, I mean, they're already whipped into a frenzy based on this little report from Crafton. So journalists do this. We have to be mindful of that. Again, when it goes quiet around United, it's all negative. Everyone wants to everyone focuses on the negative, even when everything's positive. We saw this in the FA Cup final. We win the match. We win the FA Cup. We beat Manchester City to win the FA Cup. Ten Hag's second trophy in 2 years, third final in 2 years. And the literal journalists on the pitch with him are asking him about losing his job and stuff. Like, you can't avoid this stuff. This is just the way it is with United. And we're used to it, but it's still just, it's sickening how often it happens. So the bottom line is, and again, I don't think Old Trafford as it is, if we stay there, I don't think it's going to be renamed. I think this is more of a new stadium being built option, which is totally normal because that's what you do. I don't understand too why fans are so upset about this. The new stadium being sponsored and having naming rights. It's the way things are now. Like I was saying, you can't want the club to spend money on transfers, to spend money on infrastructure, to spend money on the women's team, the training ground, the youth team, the first team. You can't want the club to try to get rid of the debt. You can't sit there and hold Sir Jim accountable for that debt that wasn't even his. But then also turn down hundreds of millions in sponsorship funds on stubborn principle like that. Like, it's not, you're not being nostalgic, you're not being the top red, you're not being the best United fan ever by saying we don't want sponsorship money for the stadium. Like, that's just being stubborn, and it's cutting off your hand to spite your, or cutting off your nose to spite your face, right? It's just not smart. It really isn't. Free stadium or money. Like, if INEOS build a new stadium, they're not just going to be like, what do we want to call it? Boom. If INEOS want to sponsor the stadium and put the money in, cool. They want to call it INEOS Stadium, go for it. But they're not just going to call it nothing, like, for free, whatever they want to call it. They're not call it Sir Jim's house, and when they can get hundreds of millions of pounds for the naming rights to it. That's just the way it works. When I was on the board of a club near me, when I joined, my big thing was revamping all the sponsorships, and I was offering like sponsorship options for everything. You know, the starting 11 sponsor tonight brought to you by such and such. You know, the man of the match sponsor brought to you by such and such. You know, I was halftime report brought to you by such and such. If there's an opportunity to get a little extra money for your club, why not just let someone throw their business logo, throw a little 15-second ad at halftime, and let it be that. Turning down the massive sponsorship money, and I mean, again, hundreds of millions for naming rights to a new stadium, is just foolish and stubborn. But that is some big news today. Let's jump on to the next big news. So this came out this morning. So United have hired a lawyer to handle the Jean-Claire Todibo situation. They're trying to contest the UEFA ruling that we're unable to sign Todibo because United and Nice are both competing in the Europa League. It's not just the United and Nice are owned by each other. That's the player, because that's what happened with City. What's happened with like the Red Bull group. It's that they're competing in the same competition, which again doesn't make sense because Sesko and Salzburg. Is Salzburg in the Europa League or Champions League? It doesn't matter. But it's ridiculous. Now, City have gotten around it because Savio is actually with Troy, but he was on loan at Girona, who now are in the Champions League. But again, how is that not the same thing? United, anyway, have hired this lawyer. His name is Gianpaolo Montanari, to try and push through their move for Todibo. So it sounds like we wouldn't do this if Todibo wasn't our top priority for center back. I know we've been looking at Branthwaite. We've been considering putting in a second bid for Branthwaite. We would not be doing this if we weren't trying everything we could to get Todibo. I mean, he could be a really good deal, and he's a really good defender. So we're going to be taking this case to the Court of Arbitration for Sport, the CAS, in an effort to get this pushed through and get through this deal. This is all a bit ridiculous. I don't understand how this is. Yeah, it's just the stuff, the way things get to this point. Like, and I don't understand too. And I commented on Twitter a couple of days ago about this. So if UEFA's whole thing is integrity of the competition, you know, not trying to do anything to impact that in a negative way. They got rid of the cup tie rule in European competitions a few years ago. Remember that? They felt like that was kind of hurting the integrity of the competition. So if you get rid of the cup tie rule, why would you then try to enforce a rule like this? You know, this player hasn't even competed in Europa League yet with this club, but you have no problem with players who competed with their club and won moving mid-season and still competing. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. It's picking and choosing when and to whom you want to apply these rules. So we'll see what happens with that. I'm not happy about the whole Todibo situation, but I don't want it to completely halt our momentum in other areas. And United are notorious for doing like one deal at a time. So I'm hoping under the new owners that will change, and we're doing a lot behind the scenes to get multiple. Saw some reports today that we're trying to get at least 2 players in before preseason, but we'll see how that goes. Speaking of players, United are interested in Manuel Ugarte, apparently. I'm completely going to take credit for this one, by the way, because if I remember I mentioned this a few days ago on my channel about wanting to do a deal for Ugarte. I love Ugarte. He's not in Luis Enrique's plans. He was immense at Sporting. He came in, took over for João Palhinha. He was immense, moved last summer. Chelsea wanted him, and he ended up going to PSG. The problem was that PSG were willing to pay a lot more money for his wages than Chelsea were, so that's why he picked it. But I am taking credit for that, just saying. If you watch this channel, you'll know. So according to Fabrizio Romano, it sounds like United have made contact with PSG for Ugarte, and PSG are open to offers for the Uruguayan, but they do want to recoup the money that they paid for him, around that 50 million mark. Ben Jacobs has reported today that we put in an offer that for Ugarte around 25 million, obviously, so like half of what PSG are holding out for. But we started the conversation. Apparently, though, according to Romano, Ugarte wasn't the only player that we discussed with PSG. They have a lot of players over there. Maybe we're looking at someone like a Barcola. I really like Barcola. PSG have a lot of players. They have a lot of midfielders running around in there. So could be an opportunity there to make something happen. Again, I really like Ugarte. I think he's an excellent defensive midfielder. PSG snatched him up very, very quickly. It's too bad it hasn't worked out for him under Luis Enrique. I don't know what's going on there. It's not really my business. Enrique really has seemed like he's preferred Vitinha and Zaire Emery. But Ugarte's actually had some decent minutes. So it's really going to be up to the player here. Sounds like PSG are open to it. Sounds like we're at the table. We wouldn't be putting in offers if the opportunity wasn't there. So the wages are a bit hefty, but we will see what happens there. But I think he would be an excellent Casemiro replacement. He's got fight. He's physical. He can move the ball. I really like him a lot. I think he'd be a great cat. He reminds me a lot of Lisandro Martinez, but in midfielder form. He's just got that I will fight anybody kind of demeanor to him. And if you look him up on YouTube, you'll find out. So moving on, we have been linked with another winger today. So this is coming from Gianluca Di Marzio. So United have reportedly asked about the situation of Bologna winger Dan Ndoye. He's Swiss. He's 23. He scored against Germany, I think, in the Euros this summer already. He's looked really good for Switzerland. He's moved around a little bit. INEOS know him pretty well. He has played for both Nice and Lucerne, their Swiss club, as well. And it's funny. So I saw this report come out a couple hours ago, and I was like, wait a second. I had to go back through my really, really old notes, my old reports, because a long time ago, I did a lot of scouting reports. I actually did a scouting report on Ndoye well over a year ago when he was still at Basel. And he was doing really well with Basel. He was linked with several clubs, and he ended up, obviously, going to Bologna. But he is a really good player. Is he the Michael Olise kind of level? Probably not. He's older than Olise is. But like I've said, I think that we're not prioritizing the right wing. And I think if we do bring in a right winger, it is going to be someone who is a little bit younger maybe, or someone who is more of a rotation like Ndoye or a Doué, someone like that. And so keep an eye on him. He's very fast. He's very, very fast. So could be really good for us. I know the question is he creative? Does he create chances? That's the big, big question. So keep an eye on that one. That one just popped up recently. As far as the attackers go, on the Zirkzee front, Darmesh Sheth with Sky is reporting that we're getting closer to a deal with Bologna for Joshua Zirkzee. We've been saying that for a couple of days now. Ben Jacobs, too, has added, we're in advanced stages, so basically the same thing. Sounds like Zirkzee's agent is giving us a discount on the fee, the bonus, but he's still looking for like $8 million for himself for a bonus. I still have this feeling that this is just Zirkzee's agent kind of putting pressure on AC Milan to get the ball rolling and to take it a little more seriously. I don't think that they'll get for the agent what they're asking for Milan, which is like 15 million or whatever. I think it'll be closer to like 10. But I do think we have interest from us. I don't think it's as serious as it's making it sound. I do think this is his agent. His agent sound like he's just wanting to get paid. But we'll see what happens there. But that's just some little bit updates as far as Zirkzee is concerned. One striker who definitely won't be coming to United, though, is Sergio Guirassy. Remember, we've been heavily linked with Guirassy pretty much all year. Kind of went quiet towards the tail end of the season. We were heavily linked with him. We were really linked with him mid-season. But Fabrizio Romano has reported today that he is actually on his way to Dortmund. Dortmund have a lot of attackers. I haven't checked in recently for the situations on Haller, Bioko, and Fulkrug. They just signed Fulkrug not that long ago. Bioko's been there a little while, and Haller's been there a little while. Obviously, Haller was out for like the season as he was struggling, recovering from cancer. But it sounds like Guirassy is going to Dortmund, and Fabrizio Romano has actually given it his official "here we go." So that's one striker off the table. Again, that striker market is not as stacked as it was last year. This year is the year of center backs. That market is very saturated, which is why we shouldn't be overpaying, because there are plenty of options out there, which is why we should definitely walk away from the Branthwaite deal. You don't spend that much money on Jared Branthwaite when you know it's an English tax, you know it's a Premier League tax, you know it's a United tax. When you can literally go get two center backs for that, you can go get two players for that same price. Chedibo, better than Branthwaite. You could definitely get that deal done. So the center back market is definitely a buyer's market this summer. So we need to be taking advantage of that. We need to draw a hard line and be willing to walk away from these deals when we know that we're being overcharged. So in any case, Guirassy to Dortmund, here we go from Romano. One player who could be leaving Old Trafford is Jadon Sancho. So this is coming from Spanish outlet Sport. They're claiming that Barcelona, of all clubs, Barcelona, right, are putting together a loan proposal for Sancho. So we know Barcelona are strapped. We know they don't want to necessarily sell players, but they know they're going to have to. But Barcelona are trying to get Sancho, and I think they're trying to sell Rafinha. I think they're hoping Ansu Fati maybe gets picked up this summer after his loan with Brighton. It sounds like Barcelona are trying to get Jadon Sancho in on a loan. So apparently they've already held talks with us. So if that's true and they are preparing a loan offer, then it might mean United are open to a loan for Sancho. I don't know if we'd want to do a straight loan again. I would hope, I'm hoping that we're trying to get some sort of obligation to buy in there. Hopefully it's somewhere around the 35, 40 million mark. But we need Sancho's wages off the books, and we need him sold. I just don't think he's got the right attitude. I don't think he can handle the Premier League. I think somewhere like France, Italy, Spain will probably be just fine for him. But we'll see what happens there. Barcelona have some players that I like, so maybe there's an opportunity for us to say, hey, you get Sancho, we'll get this player. And it looks good on paper. We sold stuff, but again, I mentioned Jules Koundé the other day. I really, really like Koundé a lot. I know he's been playing mostly right back with France this Euros, but he would definitely be our center back signing. Good progressive ball player, very good in the air, very physical, very fast. So, but we'll see. There's obviously some interest in Sancho. I know Juventus were linked with him a little bit. Dortmund obviously probably wanted to bring him back. They just can't afford it. And now Barcelona. So we'll see what happens with Sancho. Some more players who might be on the way out of Old Trafford are not the men's first team, but the women's team. So the women's team is set to lose a few key players this summer, which is kind of a bummer. I've watched a few of the women's team matches. I'm not going to pretend that I follow them as closely as the first team. I just don't. But I have watched a few there. I did watch the FA Cup final that we won. I have watched a few of their bigger matches this year. Obviously, we struggled a bit playing Man City. But it does look like Mary Earps and Lucia Garcia are both leaving. So obviously Mary Earps, our star keeper, sounds like she's going to PSG. Lucia Garcia is leaving as well. And then there have been some question marks over club captain Katie Zellem's future. That's still unclear at the moment. So could be a bummer to see 3 key players go. I'm hoping we at least tie down Zellem for a new contract because we need some stability right now. But we'll see. It is a bit frustrating, as though in terms of the disparity between how we treat the women's team and how we treat the first team, when we're so quick to offer huge fees and 10 times the wages for someone like Anthony. No disrespect, but I'm just throwing it out there as an example. But we can't allocate more of that budget for the women's team, either for the facilities or for the player contracts or whatever. I mean, consider the reports over the years that the women's teams, like their facilities, like they don't even have like bathrooms. They've had to walk miles, just to go to like porta potties or something. It's a little ridiculous. And then add to that too, there's a report that came out today from The Guardian that says the women's team is actually being pushed out of their facilities to make room for the men's team, while the men's first team facilities are being renovated. And so I've commented, and I've been saying for years, not on here obviously because I've only been doing this a few months, but the women's team are just not treated very well. I think United at the time, the Glazers, Woodward, and all that, I think they started the women's team to say, like, oh, look at us. We've got a women's team too. Look at how much we care. And I do think women's football is important. I do think the women's team should be treated a little better, but we haven't seen United do it. And this is kind of another example. So hopefully we can shift some of our focus, allocate some of those funds towards the women's team. We're already losing 2 key players. We might lose a third if our captain doesn't get tied down. We might be signing a player, so we might be getting, I think her name is Turland. She's a free player now after her contract at Brighton ran out, but we'll see what happens. But hit that like button for the women's team if you'd like to see them get a little better treated from the club, if you'd like to see us get some new players, if you'd like us to keep pushing for them. Because if we get a new stadium, for instance, I would like Old Trafford to be used for the women's team. Obviously, I don't know how many viewers they get in the stands, but I know the women's team, the FA Cup final it was like record breaking, the numbers that we got. So I think the demand is there, the fandom is there, and I think with more focus in marketing and more of a push for that, I think you could really turn that into something special. And so keep an eye on that. But big up the women's team for keeping it held strong this year. It's going to do it for United news. I will wrap up, though, with a question for you. You guys watching the Euros, how good have Austria looked so far? They have looked impressive. And I know they finished top of their group. And I said in my video before the Euros kind of started, I was asking people, like, who are your favorites? Are there any dark horses, any players? And I remember a lot of people online, on the radio and everything, were talking about Austria. Ralf Rangnick has come in and really turned them around. Everybody on that team, they press, they're clinical, they're organized, they work together, they know what they're doing. There's a system in place. And I am going to call out everyone, though, who's watching these Euros and they're online tweeting things like, see, Rangnick should have been given more time, or see, it's the players at United. Look at what he's doing with Austria. These United players can't hang. Because many of these people that are saying these things are the same people who criticize Ten Hag. Again, it's not the manager, it's the players. These same players have given up on multiple managers. Cristiano Ronaldo, in his narcissism-fueled tantrum with Piers Morgan, has said, I've never even heard of Rangnick. And I'm like, so your ignorance is an excuse? Like, not knowing information is supposed to be some sort of valid argument in a conversation? Ignorance is not an argument. Ignorance is just ignorance. And so, not that I would expect Ronaldo to know about anybody that he deems not at his station in life, because that is narcissism. But again, these players at United, they're not technical enough, they're not good enough, or they just don't have the right mentality. And you can go through that squad right now and you can kind of assign one of those attributes to each of these players. Who's not technical enough, who's not good enough quality-wise, and who doesn't have the right mentality. I'll leave you guys to decide that. I'll leave it on that for today. Like I said, quick one today because there are some big updates. Not a lot of news, but some big news. So potential Ugarte deal, which I hope we get over the line. Sancho potentially going on loan to Barcelona. New stadium naming rights could be sold to the highest bidder. I don't think it's going to be a change of Old Trafford if we stay at Old Trafford and it gets renovated. I think it's only new stadium, which is totally normal. Nobody freak out. So let me know your thoughts. Leave a like on the video. I haven't yet heard back from the winner of this giveaway for this shirt. So this shirt is up for grabs again. This is a medium pre-match top, the black one with the the blue and the cream colored confetti kind of pattern. It's a medium. It's men's. It's brand new. I'm not going to take it out of the package because I don't want to take it out of the package. But in order to get entered to that, you got to be subscribed and leave some comments on the videos to let me know. I will go through and check those out. I will reply to them all, but I want to see who's involved. I want to see who's following along. I want to see who's supporting a channel so I can support you. So like the video, subscribe, follow me on MUFC versus everybody. Leave a comment, please, and I will check in with you, and we will see you guys on the next one. Take it easy.